So, this story was sent to me by a Reddit user who preferred to stay anonymous. After reading what they went through, I can understand why. They told me this happened a few months ago when they had just started their shift as a night nurse in a small old hospital on the outskirts of a major city. It was the kind of place most people don't think twice about. Nothing special, just an aging building that seemed stuck in time. No one really ever noticed it much except for the patients who needed it. At first, everything seemed normal, just another night shift at an old hospital, right? But that night, that shift, was unlike anything they could have imagined. They said it wasn't just the weird things they saw that night. It was the way they felt about it, like the place itself was alive, watching and waiting for something they weren't meant to understand. The longer they stayed, the more they started to feel like they weren't the only ones there. It was my first night shift at the old hospital on the edge of town, the kind of place you don't think twice about. I had heard rumors from the other nurses, but I was new. I thought it was just their way of spicing up the monotony of their jobs, nothing more. The building was old, creaky, and smelled faintly of antiseptic, mixed with something I couldn't quite place. I didn't mind it, though. I had been in worse places. The hospital was near the outskirts of the city, surrounded by dense trees and fields, and in some ways, I found that peaceful. It was isolated, which meant I didn't have to deal with the bustle of a busy urban hospital. I had been warned by the others that this place was different. Some of the older nurses would tell me stories, but I never believed them. I thought they were just trying to scare the new kid. On that first night, I started my shift just like any other nurse would. I clocked in at 10 p.m. and went straight to the floor where I'd be working. Just a regular wing of the hospital that dealt with a variety of patients. The sounds of the night. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the soft hum of machinery in the background. Felt like any other hospital I had worked in. There was a strange quietness to it, though. A quiet that lingered in the halls even when I was alone, and that unnerved me. I tried to shake it off, chalking it up to first night jitters. I checked on my patients, administered medications, and did everything I was supposed to do. But around 2 a.m., things started to feel off. I was in one of the rooms, checking on a patient who had been in a coma for several months. His name was Mr. Daniels, and his family visited him every day, but the doctors had all but given up on him. He had been unresponsive for weeks, his body still alive, but his mind completely gone. I adjusted his IV drip, checking the chart to make sure everything was fine when I heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from behind me. I turned around, but nothing was there. Just the empty hallway, the faint glow from the emergency exit sign casting long shadows on the floor. The hospital was so quiet at this hour that the tiniest sound felt like it was amplified. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just the building settling. It was old, after all. But as I moved down the hall to check on the next patient, the scratching came again. This time, it was louder, closer, like it was right behind me. I spun around, heart racing, but again there was nothing, just emptiness. I wasn't sure what to make of it. It was a hospital, after all. Sometimes equipment would malfunction or strange noises would come from the ventilation. It was probably something like that. But then the lights flickered. It wasn't just one light. It was several, in rapid succession. Each flicker was accompanied by a small burst of static in the overhead speaker system, like someone was trying to communicate through it, but nothing intelligible came through. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but I felt a chill run down my spine. I turned and made my way toward the nurse's station to check on my shift partner, hoping to break the eerie feeling that was creeping over me. But when I got there, the nurse station was empty. I stood there for a moment, confused. My partner, Sarah, should have been there, sitting at her desk, filing paperwork, or at least taking a break. But there was no sign of her. The station was dark, and the light above the desk flickered intermittently. "Sarah?" I called out, but my voice sounded weak in the stillness. I walked around the corner to the break room, but it was empty as well. Strange, I thought. Sarah was never one to wander off. She was always there. I assumed she'd just stepped out for a moment, maybe gone to get some water. I decided to continue my rounds, but the sense of unease only grew stronger as I walked through the halls. It was like I was being watched, though I couldn't see anyone. The walls, the windows, everything felt like it was closing in on me. As I passed by one of the rooms, I noticed that the door was slightly ajar. It was a room I hadn't visited yet, and I could have sworn it had been empty when I last checked the chart. I paused, feeling a strange pull to go inside. Something in my gut told me not to, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to look. Slowly, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was dark, but the faint glow from the hallway cast enough light to see. The bed was empty. There was no patient there, but that wasn't the most unsettling part. The air felt heavier, like it had been disturbed. Something had been in that room recently, something alive. And then I heard it, a soft, raspy whisper. "Help me." It wasn't the voice of a patient. It wasn't even a human voice. It was a low, rasping hiss, like something was trying to speak but couldn't. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as I quickly backed out of the room, slamming the door shut behind me. I turned on my heels, ready to head back to the nurse's station, but something stopped me. A figure. It was standing at the far end of the hallway, just out of reach of the flickering light. It was tall, wearing something that looked like a hospital gown, but there was something wrong about it. I couldn't see its face, not clearly. The figure's face was blurred, like it was distorted, shifting, as if it was trying to hide its identity from me. I froze. I wanted to move, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I was rooted to the spot. I was staring at it, at them. It turned and began walking toward me, slowly. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even scream. My voice was locked in my throat, my mind scrambling for an explanation, but there was none. I had heard stories about this place, the strange things people had seen, the things that had been reported, but I didn't believe any of it until now. The figure got closer, its movements jerky, unnatural. It was dragging its foot with every step, the sound of it scraping against the floor echoing in the dead silence. I wanted to turn and run, but my body refused to move. And then, just as it reached me, it stopped. It reached out with one hand, and I could feel its cold, clammy fingers brushing against my arm. "Help me," the voice whispered again. Only this time it was louder, closer, and I understood. It wasn't asking for help. It was demanding it. I stood there, frozen, trapped in that moment, my heart pounding in my chest as the chilling words echoed in my mind. The air in the hallway grew colder, and I could feel an unnatural presence pressing in on me from all sides. It wasn't just a figure anymore. It was something else, something wrong. The fingers, cold and clammy, pressed harder into my arm, and for a split second, I could feel the skin beneath them begin to burn. I wanted to pull away, scream, anything, but I couldn't. My body refused to move, trapped in a state of paralysis. "Help me," the voice rasped again, louder, more desperate. I forced myself to look up at what should have been a face, but there was no face, not anymore. It was just an empty void, a gaping black hole where features should have been. I could feel my breath hitch in my throat as the void seemed to expand, consuming everything around it, drawing me in. The thing, it wasn't human. It couldn't be. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was rooted to the spot. The darkness around me seemed to press in even tighter, as if the walls themselves were closing in. But then, just as quickly as it had appeared, it jerked back. The fingers released their grip on my arm, and it stumbled backward, its movements erratic, like it was being pulled by something unseen. I gasped for air, feeling the tension in my body snap back as I suddenly regained control over my limbs. My legs shook uncontrollably, but I forced myself to run, to get away from whatever that was. I turned and bolted down the hall, not daring to look back, my heart pounding in my chest, the sound of my footsteps echoing like gunshots in the otherwise silent building. But even as I ran, I felt like the darkness was chasing me, reaching out, trying to pull me back into its grip. I made it back to the nurse's station in record time, my breath coming in ragged gasps. But when I rounded the corner, I skidded to a stop. Sarah, my shift partner, was sitting at her desk, just like I had left her earlier. She didn't look up when I entered, but the room felt wrong. The lights flickered again, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe and twitch. I blinked, convinced that the dim light was playing tricks on my eyes. But the shadows weren't right. They didn't follow the shape of the furniture or the walls. They seemed to twist unnaturally, like something was lurking just out of sight. "Sarah?" I called again, my voice trembling. She still didn't respond. I approached her cautiously, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling gnawing at me. My stomach churned with unease, but I forced myself to walk up to her desk. And then I saw it. Blood. A smear of red across the edge of the desk, leading toward her hand. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, or maybe something had spilled. But no, the blood was real. Thick, fresh. My heart skipped a beat as I slowly reached for her shoulder and gently shook it. "Sarah, what the hell is going on?" She didn't move. Her face remained expressionless, staring ahead, her eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. And then as my hand touched her shoulder, a horrifying, unnatural chill shot through me, as if an icy hand had gripped my very soul. I yanked my hand back, stumbling away, my breath quickening. "Sarah, please," I begged, my voice barely above a whisper. Still, she didn't react. But then in a low, raspy voice that sounded almost like a death rattle, she spoke. "You shouldn't have come here." Her words were chilling, but what terrified me most was the way she said them, like she wasn't Sarah anymore, like someone or something else was speaking through her. Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. I could feel the fear gnawing at me, bubbling up from deep within. The figure at the desk slowly turned her head toward me, her movements jerky, unnatural. But her eyes, they were wrong. They were dark, hollow, not the eyes of the woman I knew, and they seemed to stare through me. "I'm not Sarah," it whispered, its voice like nails scraping on a chalkboard. "But I've been waiting for you." I stumbled backward, my breath caught in my throat. What was happening? Was I losing my mind? Was I seeing things? The lights flickered again. This time they didn't just flicker, they went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. I felt a cold hand brush against my cheek, and I froze, unable to react. It wasn't Sarah's touch. It was something else. Something cold, clammy, like death itself. The lights blinked back on for a fraction of a second, and in that brief moment, I saw it. A figure, tall, gaunt, wearing the tattered remnants of a hospital gown, loomed behind Sarah. It had a face, but it was grotesque, half flesh and half skeletal. Its eyes were wide, unblinking and bloodshot, as if it had been watching me for an eternity. Before I could react, the lights flickered once more, and this time, when they returned, the figure was gone. Sarah was still sitting there, unmoving, but there was a deep sense of wrongness in the air. The silence felt thick, oppressive, like the walls themselves were closing in around me. I had to get out. I didn't care what was happening. I didn't care if it was real or some nightmare. I just needed to leave. But as I turned to flee, I saw something that froze me in my tracks. The hallway, once empty, was now full. The shadows that had been twisting before were now shifting, moving like living things, crawling across the floor, creeping up the walls. And in the midst of it all, I could hear the soft sound of whispering voices, dozens of them, hundreds of them. Help. Us. Help. Me. I ran. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just knew I had to get away from that place before it consumed me too. But no matter how fast I ran, the voices followed me. And I knew then that I was never really alone. I stumbled down the dimly lit hallway, my breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps. Every step felt like I was wading through some thick, unseen force, pulling at my very soul. The whispers that followed me, soft, desperate, seemed to grow louder, more insistent. They were coming from all directions, their words indistinguishable, like a chorus of suffering souls trapped in some nightmarish purgatory. Help us. Don't leave us. I couldn't tell if it was just my mind playing tricks on me, or if the walls were alive, breathing, shifting with unseen horrors. But one thing was certain. The place, this hospital, was no longer just a building. It had become something more, something alive. I turned a corner, desperate to escape the whispers, the oppressive darkness that seemed to swallow every bit of light in its path. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what was happening. Was it a hallucination? Was I just imagining everything? Or was this place truly cursed? I couldn't afford to think about it too long. I had to get out. But as I rushed forward, I noticed something that stopped me cold. The exit doors, the ones I had seen earlier, the ones I knew led outside, were gone. There was no sign of them, no handle, no exit sign, just more hallway stretching out endlessly in front of me. I stared at the spot where the doors should have been, my mind trying to comprehend the impossible. Had I missed them? Had I been going in circles? I was about to turn back when I saw it, a figure standing at the end of the hallway. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light. But no, it was real. It had to be. The figure was tall, impossibly tall, its body stretched in unnatural proportions. The shadows clung to it, distorting its shape, making it difficult to discern its true form. But what I could see sent a chill down my spine. It wore a hospital gown, like the others I had seen earlier, but it was tattered and stained with something dark and viscous. Its arms were too long, reaching down to the floor, fingers thin and ending in sharp, jagged nails. But the most horrifying thing was its face, or rather the lack of one. There was no mouth, no eyes, no nose, just smooth, pale skin, stretched taut over a featureless skull. And yet, I knew it was watching me. I could feel it, its presence, its gaze, even without a face. I froze, paralyzed by fear. My heart thundered in my chest, the blood rushing in my ears as the figure took a slow, deliberate step forward. The whispers grew louder, more frantic, their desperation overwhelming. Please, help. I'm sorry. The figure's head tilted to one side, its body bending at an unnatural angle, as though it were studying me. And then it spoke. Its voice wasn't a voice at all. It was a series of hissing, wet, guttural sounds, like a chorus of insects crawling beneath my skin. You shouldn't have come here, it said, its voice sliding into my brain, infecting my thoughts. I tried to move, but my body refused to obey. My legs were frozen, my feet glued to the floor, as if some invisible force held me in place. Leave, now. The words were more like a command than a suggestion, and I could feel the weight of them pressing down on my chest like a physical force. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was stare at the thing before me as it took another slow, deliberate step forward. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Was this some kind of insane dream? Or had I really crossed into some twisted version of reality where things like this existed? It didn't matter. I knew one thing for certain. I had to get out. I didn't care if I was hallucinating. I didn't care if it was all in my head. I just wanted to escape, to get away from whatever this was. The figure took another step, and I could feel its presence closing in on me. The air grew colder, thick with an oppressive dread that made every breath feel like a struggle. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, a constant reminder of how close I was to losing control. But then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure stopped. It stood there, motionless, like a statue carved from the darkest shadows. And in that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. I wasn't alone anymore. The hallway was filled with figures, dozens of them, all standing in the shadows, watching me with their empty, featureless faces. They were everywhere, watching, waiting, and I knew, deep in my gut, that they weren't just watching me. They were waiting for something, for someone. They were waiting for me to make a move, and the moment I did, I knew they would come for me. I took a step back, my heart racing so fast it felt like it might burst from my chest. The shadows moved in unison, as if the figures were one collective organism, a dark swarm of unblinking eyes. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my throat. Just the strangled sobs of someone caught in the grip of absolute terror. I glanced around frantically, looking for an escape, but the hallway had twisted. It had become a labyrinth of darkened corridors that stretched on forever, the walls now closing in around me. The light above flickered like a dying heartbeat, casting eerie, stuttering shadows that danced around the figures, making them seem even more monstrous. And then, something else happened. A door, previously invisible, appeared at the end of the hallway. It was small, rusted, and ancient-looking, like it had been there for centuries, waiting for someone to find it. The faintest hint of light seeped from under it, and for a brief, irrational moment, I thought it might lead to freedom. But even as I stared at the door, I felt a strange, sickening pull in my stomach. It wasn't the pull of hope, though. It was something darker, like a predator luring its prey into a trap. The figures didn't move. They didn't have to. It was clear that whatever that door represented wasn't salvation. It was just another part of the nightmare. I started to run. My feet pounded the floor, and my breath came in ragged gasps, each step echoing through the hallway. The figures didn't follow immediately, but I could feel their eyes, empty, hollow, burning into the back of my skull. They were watching, waiting for me to make a mistake. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I reached the door. My hand trembled as I grasped the cold, rusted knob. It was heavier than it should have been, like it didn't want to open, but I turned it anyway. The door creaked open with a screech that made my teeth ache, and I stepped into the room beyond. The room was different. It was small, almost like an old forgotten office. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and the faint smell of disinfectant, mixed with something rotten, hung in the air. There was a desk in the corner, cluttered with papers, and a single chair in front of it. But what drew my eyes to the center of the room wasn't the desk. It was the figure sitting in the chair. A woman, or what had once been a woman. She was slumped forward, her arms hanging limp at her sides, her head tilted at an odd angle. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes, those eyes, stared at me, unblinking. I could feel her gaze piercing into me, as though she were looking straight through me. Her lips moved slowly, but the sound that came from her mouth wasn't words. It was a wet, gurgling sound, like something drowning in its own throat. I froze. The door slammed shut behind me and the room plunged into darkness. My heart stopped. The air grew thick, stifling, like I was drowning in it. The only sound was the woman's breathing, slow and labored, as though she were struggling to stay alive. But I could tell she wasn't alive. She couldn't be. And then she began to laugh. It was low at first, just a soft, mocking chuckle, but it quickly grew louder, more frenzied. The sound bounced off the walls, echoing through my skull. It was a horrible, hollow sound, like the laughter of someone who had long since lost their sanity. "I'm sorry," she rasped. Her voice was cracked, broken, like it hadn't been used in years. "It's too late." Suddenly the room felt smaller, suffocating. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows pressing in from all sides. The woman's laughter grew louder and louder until it was deafening. My head throbbed with pain, my vision blurry, the edges of my sight curling inwards, as though the room itself was warping, bending around me. "Too late," she repeated, the words echoing like a mantra, a warning, a curse. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, locked in place by some unseen force, unable to even scream. All I could do was watch as the figure in front of me slowly raised her head, her eyes wide open, unblinking. There was no expression on her face, no pain, no fear, just emptiness. I realized, with a sudden jolt of panic, that I wasn't just watching her, I was becoming her, trapped in the same twisted, empty void. The room began to spin, the walls warping and contorting like they were alive. The floor buckled beneath me. I was falling, spiraling, but there was no escape. The woman's laugh was all I could hear now, a maddening, unrelenting sound that consumed everything. And then everything went black. When I woke up, I wasn't sure if I had actually fallen asleep or if I had just lost all sense of time. My eyes snapped open, but all I could see was darkness. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of decay, and the silence was oppressive. It pressed down on me, suffocating me, making it hard to breathe. My chest was tight, and every inhale felt like a struggle. I tried to sit up, but my body refused to cooperate. My limbs felt like they were made of lead, too heavy to move. I strained, forcing my arms to push against the ground, and finally, I managed to sit up. But as soon as I did, I realized something horrifying. I wasn't in the room anymore. I was in a completely different place, one that I couldn't recognize. The walls around me were cracked and peeling, covered in mold, and the floor beneath me was cold, uneven, and slick with something wet. It felt like I had been transported to some distant, forgotten part of the hospital, the kind of place that wasn't even on the maps, the places the staff wouldn't go unless they absolutely had to. I reached out, my hand brushing against the wall. The texture was wrong, slick, like it was coated in something viscous, something that didn't belong in a hospital. The smell was rancid, like something had been rotting here for decades. And then I heard it, a soft sound, almost imperceptible at first. Footsteps. I froze. They were slow, deliberate, each one echoing off the walls. I strained my ears, trying to make sense of the noise, but there was no mistaking it. Someone or something was coming. I didn't want to look. My instincts told me to stay still, to pretend I wasn't here. to let whatever was coming pass me by. But my curiosity, that terrible, relentless curiosity, pushed me forward. I slowly turned my head, my eyes scanning the shadows. The hallway was long, too long, stretching out into the distance. The flickering light above cast everything in an eerie, dim glow. And then, at the end of the hallway, I saw it. A figure, tall, thin, and impossibly lanky. Its arms hung by its sides, too long, too thin, like they didn't belong to a human body. It was shrouded in shadows, but I could see enough to know it wasn't alive. Its face, or what should have been its face, was a smooth, featureless surface. No eyes, no mouth, just a pale, lifeless mask. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't look away. And then it moved. It didn't walk. It glided, its feet never touching the ground, as if it was floating toward me. Each movement was unnatural, fluid, like it wasn't bound by the laws of reality. I scrambled backward, my body finally responding, but it was too late. The figure was already close, too close, its presence suffocating, its emptiness overwhelming. "You shouldn't have come here," a voice rasped, though its lips never moved. It was the same voice I had heard before, low, guttural, like something that had crawled out of the very bowels of the earth. I wanted to scream, but the words were stuck in my throat. I couldn't form any sound. My throat was dry, raw, as though I hadn't spoken in days. The figure took another step forward, and I felt it then. The cold. It wasn't just the chill of the air. It was a deep, penetrating cold, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question whether you'll ever be warm again. "You were warned," it continued, its voice somehow louder, closer now. I scrambled to my feet, stumbling as I tried to run, but my legs felt weak, unsteady. I could hear it, the figure's movements behind me, silent, smooth, like a predator closing in on its prey. I didn't dare look back, not even for a second. I ran, but the hallway stretched out endlessly, no end in sight. The walls seemed to close in around me, the lights flickering in and out, casting long, menacing shadows that twisted and danced along the walls. My feet pounded against the floor, but no matter how fast I ran, the figure was always there, just behind me, its presence looming like a dark cloud. I thought I saw the exit, just ahead, a door at the end of the hallway, bathed in the faintest light. My heart raced with hope. But then as I neared the door, something stopped me cold. The door was wrong. It wasn't the kind of door I'd seen before. It was too old, too battered, as though it had been abandoned for years. There was a strange, sickly green light spilling from beneath it, flickering like a dying candle. I reached for the handle, but before I could touch it, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang. The sound reverberated through the hallway, making my blood run cold. "No," I whispered to myself. "No, no, no." I turned to run, but the figure was there, right in front of me. It was standing in the center of the hallway, blocking my escape. It tilted its head slightly, as though considering me, before taking a slow, deliberate step forward. Its hand reached out, fingers long and gnarled, but it didn't touch me. No, it didn't need to. The moment its hand was near, I felt it, like an invisible pressure, like I was being pulled into its grasp. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, unable to fight, unable to scream. And then the figure spoke, its voice a whisper, a promise. "You're not leaving," it said. I don't remember blacking out, but when I came to, I was outside, back on the gas station lot. The sun was up, the air was clear, and I was lying face down on the asphalt, just outside the entrance to the store. I shot up with a gasp, half expecting to see that thing hovering over me. But there was nothing, just the usual scene. The rusted gas pumps, The dented ice machine, the flies circling the trash can. It was like everything had been reset, like none of it had happened, but it had. My clothes were still soaked with sweat, and my throat was raw like I'd been screaming all night. I glanced at the store. The windows were still grimy, but now sunlight was streaming through them. A delivery truck idled nearby, the driver unloading crates. Normal life was moving again, but I wasn't a part of it anymore. Not really, because the worst part wasn't the night itself. It was that I remembered it, all of it. Every second of being trapped in that twisted, shifting labyrinth. Every whisper, every shadow that reached for me. Every time I thought I was going to die, I tried to go back to my car, but it wouldn't start. Not even a click. Dead. Which didn't make sense because it had been fine the day before. I popped the hood. Everything looked untouched. No loose cables, no leaks. It just refused to work. So I went back inside the store. Mark was behind the counter. He looked up and gave me this casual nod, like nothing was wrong. "Rough night?" he said, sipping from a coffee cup that said, "World's okayest employee." I just stared at him. I wanted to scream, to demand what the hell had happened, to ask why he didn't warn me, but all I managed to say was, "You knew." His eyes met mine. The smile never left his face. "We all know," he said, and that was it. He went back to his crossword puzzle. I walked out, and I didn't go back for 2 days, but I had to return. I needed answers, and deep down, I think I was already addicted to whatever the hell was happening in that place. The next time I pulled in, it was raining. A light drizzle at first, but it picked up the moment I turned off the engine. The sky went black, like someone flipped a switch. Mark wasn't at the counter this time. No one was. I stood inside the store for a few minutes, waiting for him to pop out of the back, maybe say something cryptic, but there was only silence. And then, the lights flickered, just once. But that was enough to twist my stomach. I turned around, and the front door was gone. Not shut, gone. In its place was a concrete wall. The windows, bricked up, no light, just stone and shadow. My heart dropped. It was starting again. Something about this place, this gas station, it could shift, morph, like a living organism with a mind of its own. And now, it wanted me back inside. I wasn't dreaming. I know I wasn't. I scratched my arm until it bled, just to prove I was awake. The aisles stretched longer this time. Rows and rows of snacks and junk food went on for miles. I walked and walked, but never reached the end. I passed the same pack of off-brand gummy worms 6 times. And then the sound started. A low humming, like electricity running through meat. It came from beneath the floor. I crouched down and pressed my ear to the tiles. Beneath me, I heard a voice. No. Voices. Whispering, crying, begging. Something was buried under the gas station. Something old, something angry. I stood up so fast I knocked over a display of windshield wipers. They scattered across the floor like broken limbs. That's when the intercom came on. A sharp screech of feedback, then static, and then, "Do not leave your aisle." The voice wasn't Mark's. It was deeper, cracked and wet, like someone gargling broken glass. I backed away. I didn't listen. I left my aisle. The floor groaned beneath me, and then it split. Right down the middle of the convenience store, the linoleum cracked open like skin peeling from a wound. A fissure, deep and wide, tore through the building. Black mist poured from the crack, thick and choking. I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. I covered my mouth and tried to move back, but the shelves were gone. The door was gone. Everything had vanished into the fog. And then I heard her, my mom. But my mom had been dead for 3 years. Still, I heard her voice plain as day. "Sweetheart, come here. I've missed you so much." It came from the mist. "No," I whispered. "You're not her." But the voice grew more desperate. "Please, baby, I'm cold. Just one hug." I felt something wrap around my ankle. Fingers. I kicked and screamed and tried to pull free, but whatever it was strong, and it was dragging me toward the fissure, toward the dark. I clawed at the floor tiles, tearing my nails, my blood mixing with the dirt and grime. I reached for anything, and shelves, racks, even the broken remains of the coffee machine. Nothing helped. Then out of nowhere, a hand grabbed mine. It was Mark, his face pale, sweating. "You're not ready," he said. "It's too soon." He yanked me back with impossible strength. The fog screamed, actually screamed, as it retreated. The fissure sealed shut, and we were back in the normal store, clean, quiet. Mark sat me in a chair behind the counter and handed me a bottle of water. "Next time," he said, "don't leave your aisle." After that second night, I stopped trying to tell myself it was all in my head. Whatever this gas station was, it wasn't just a building. It was a thing, and it wasn't bound by the same rules as the world outside. Mark never explained anything. He never sat me down and said, "Here's what's going on." He just gave cryptic warnings like he had already accepted the place for what it was. I started wondering if he'd been working there for years or decades, maybe even longer. Time felt weird around him. I stayed away for 3 weeks, didn't even drive past the lot. But then I started dreaming about it. Every single night. Same thing, over and over. I'm standing behind the counter, ringing up a customer, only they don't have a face, just a mass of teeth and bone where the head should be. And they keep buying the same thing, a bottle of lighter fluid, a rope, and a raw steak. Every night, over and over, until I'd wake up gasping, and always. I could smell gasoline, even in my apartment, even hours after I woke up. One night I woke to find my car keys lying on my chest. I hadn't put them there, and I live alone. So yeah, I went back. Like I said, the place pulls you in. When I arrived this time, it was around 3:15 a.m. No rain, no wind, just dead quiet. The air felt thick, like soup. Mark wasn't there. Instead, someone else stood behind the counter. A woman. Her skin was pale, eyes sunken so deep they looked like bruises. She had this strained smile, like she was being forced to show her teeth. She didn't blink the entire time I was there. "Welcome," she said. Her voice was flat, hollow. "You're right on time." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and walked toward the back cooler, pretending to browse. But when I opened the cooler door, it wasn't the inside of the fridge I saw. It was a hallway, a long, dim corridor lined with flickering hospital lights. I turned around. The gas station was gone, replaced by concrete walls and peeling paint. The air smelled of antiseptic and something worse underneath, like rotting meat and old bandages. I had no choice. I stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind me. Then, silence. Not even the hum of the lights. Just that thick, ringing silence that makes your ears ache. I walked forward. My footsteps echoed, too loud. And then I started hearing it. Not footsteps, wheels, like a gurney being pushed across linoleum. Somewhere ahead of me. Slow, uneven, like the wheels were rusted. I pressed forward, slowly, carefully. That's when I saw the smear. A long red line across the floor. Blood, still wet, leading around the corner. And because I'm a goddamn idiot, I followed it. The corridor turned sharply, leading into what looked like an old hospital ward. Beds lined both sides, curtains drawn, machines beeping softly, even though none of them were plugged in. Then I saw the first patient, lying there, motionless, except they weren't human. Not anymore. Their body had too many joints. The limbs bent the wrong way, like a spider's. Their face was a blur, literally, like someone had smeared Vaseline across a photo. I couldn't make out a single feature, and still, I knew them. It was my cousin, Nathan. He died in a car crash 4 years ago. I backed away, heart pounding, panic rising in my throat like bile. But as I turned to run, I heard whispering. Every curtain fluttered, every bed shifted. The other patients were getting up, dozens of them, limbs cracking, stretching, blurry faces twitching like bad reception. I sprinted, down hallway after hallway, my hands slapping against the cold walls for support. The corridor shifted behind me, stairs where there had been none, doors appearing then vanishing. I was in some kind of maze, a living, breathing nightmare stitched from old hospitals and morgues. At one point, I turned a corner and came face to face with a mirror. Just a cracked, full-length mirror standing in the middle of the hallway. I froze, because the me in the reflection wasn't moving. It just stood there, staring at me. Then it smiled and reached through the glass. That's when the lights exploded, every single one. Glass rained down like shrapnel. I hit the floor, arms over my head, and when I looked up, the mirror was gone. So was the hallway, and I was back in the gas station, lying in the snack aisle, surrounded by shattered bottles of hot sauce. Mark stood above me, holding a mop. "Don't trust the cooler doors," he said casually. "They're unpredictable." I couldn't stop shaking. "Mark," I asked, "what the fuck is this place?" He didn't answer. Instead, he helped me up and handed me a cold bottle of water. "Clock out for now," he said. "Next time, bring salt." I wanted to ask what that meant, but he turned away and disappeared into the back room. I didn't sleep for 2 days, and when I finally did, I dreamed of the gas station again. Only this time, it wasn't a dream. When I woke up, there was a receipt in my hand for a bottle of lighter fluid, a rope, and a raw steak. I didn't go outside for a week after that. I taped my windows shut, turned off every light, slept on the floor with my back to the wall, a kitchen knife clutched in my hand, like it was going to save me from whatever the hell I saw in that hallway. But the worst part? The dreams didn't stop. They changed. They became more specific. It was like the gas station wasn't content with just pulling me in. It was studying me, learning, adapting. In the next dream, I wasn't even at the gas station. I was in my childhood home. Same yellow wallpaper, same ticking grandfather clock in the hallway, same water stain on the ceiling from where the upstairs bathroom leaked when I was 6. Only this time, I wasn't alone. Something was in the walls. I could hear it. Moving, scraping, whispering just low enough that I couldn't make out the words. And in the dream, I couldn't move. Not like sleep paralysis. This was different. I could breathe. I could feel my heartbeat slamming in my chest. But my arms and legs wouldn't respond. My body wasn't mine. And then I saw him, Mark, standing in the corner of the room. But it wasn't him. It was something wearing him. His eyes were pitch black. His jaw hung too low. His fingers were too long, bent at strange angles like spider legs. And he just watched me. Didn't blink, didn't speak, just watched. Until I woke up gasping, heart racing, sheets soaked with sweat and piss. I didn't even remember going to bed that night. But there, on my nightstand, was another receipt. Same 3 items, and this time, it had my name printed at the top. Like I was the cashier, like I had rung it up, like I was working again. I tried calling the police, tried telling them about what was happening, about Mark, about the gas station, about the cooler that led to a hallway full of faceless corpses. They hung up on me. One even told me, "Sir, we've gotten calls like this before. If you're on something, I suggest you seek help. Calls like this before." That sentence stuck with me. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to the library. Yes, the goddamn library. I searched the town records, property deeds, missing persons, anything connected to the address of the gas station. And what I found made my blood run cold. That gas station. It's been closed since 1993. Burned down in an electrical fire. The entire night crew, 3 workers, died in the blaze. No one rebuilt it. No permits were ever filed to reconstruct the building. It's officially abandoned land. I even drove out there during the day, just to confirm. There was nothing there, just an empty lot. Cracked pavement, overgrown weeds, like the gas station never existed. But I went back that night, and there it was, fully lit, open for business. Same flickering sign, same rusted ice machine, same blood stain behind the counter. Like it was waiting for me. I tried to resist. I swear I did. But something in my head kept saying, just 5 more minutes. Just check the back. Just one more shift. I stepped inside, and instantly, the air changed. The hum of the fluorescence felt alive. The radio behind the counter was playing a static-filled version of a song I used to sing as a child, except it was backwards. The candy bars were melted into bizarre shapes. The potato chips moved, twitching inside the sealed bags like they were breathing. And Mark wasn't there. Instead, the woman was back, the one from before, the pale one with the dead eyes and plastic smile. Only now her skin was peeling. She opened her mouth to speak, and her jaw fell clean off. No blood, just black mist pouring out of the hole like smoke. I stumbled backward, slipping on something wet. The floor was coated in organs, slippery, glistening intestines coiled like snakes underfoot. I looked up, and the shelves were gone. The ceiling was gone. The walls were gone. And I was standing in the middle of a graveyard. Dozens of headstones, all crammed together. No names, just dates. Every date was the same. October 19th, 3:17 a.m. I turned around. The gas station door was still behind me, open, glowing faintly. I bolted through it and found myself back behind the counter. The clock read 3:17 a.m. Mark stood beside me again, except now. He had no face, just smooth skin stretched tight like plastic wrap where his features should have been. He turned his head toward me slowly. "You're getting the hang of it," he said. I screamed, but no sound came out, because I didn't have a mouth either. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, nose bleeding, gums raw, fingernails torn like I'd been clawing my own face. My phone was ringing. No caller ID. I answered. A child's voice whispered, "Shift starts in 5 minutes." Click. The line went dead. I haven't slept since. I don't even think I'm alive anymore. Because sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I swear I see the gas station behind me, waiting. I'm not proud of what I did next. I knew I couldn't stay in that apartment, not with a gas station invading my sleep, my waking life, my reflection. I started packing, just the essentials: wallet, phone, a duffel bag full of clothes, a bottle of cheap whiskey I kept under the sink, still half full. As I zipped the bag shut, I heard a sound behind me, a soft, wet thud. I froze. Another thud, closer. I turned toward the bathroom, and the light under the door was flickering, not like a bulb struggling to stay alive. No, this was rhythmic, timed, like it was breathing. I grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter and crept forward. Each step felt like walking through glue. The air grew heavier with every inch. The hallway between me and the bathroom stretched longer than it should have, like the apartment was rearranging itself. When I finally reached the door, I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. Then very faintly, a voice, my voice, coming from inside. It was whispering something over and over, too quiet to hear. I slowly turned the knob. The bathroom was pitch black. Even the light from the hallway refused to enter. It just stopped at the threshold, like it was afraid to cross in. I reached inside and flipped the switch. Nothing. Then my own voice, right behind me, said, "Don't look." I spun around. No one there. But the hallway was gone, replaced by aisles. Gas station aisles, candy bars, cigarettes, moldy magazines, that broken slushy machine humming softly, dripping red liquid onto the sticky floor. I stumbled backward, into the bathroom, into the dark. The door slammed shut, and I was falling. Not like slipping on ice, not like tripping over something. I mean falling, straight down, through endless black. I screamed. No echo, just the sound of rushing wind and something else underneath it, like whispers layered beneath engine noise, like 1,000 mouths all pressed to microphones at once. Then I landed, hard, concrete floor, wet, cold. The lights flickered on, and I realized where I was. The basement. The gas station had a basement, only it wasn't built like anything that should exist under a gas station. It stretched for what looked like miles in every direction. Rows and rows of shelves, some filled with body parts, some with bones, some with jars of eyes that blinked in unison when I stepped forward. A loudspeaker crackled above me. "Clean up in aisle 7. I turned toward the sound and saw a trail of blood leading between the shelves. I should have run. I should have screamed. Instead, I followed it, down the aisle, past the flickering lights and the broken security mirrors. At the end of the path was a door, unlike anything else down there. Clean, white, sterile. I opened it and was hit with the smell of hospital disinfectant and something much, much worse, like decayed meat soaked in bleach. Inside was an operating room, but wrong. Too many surgical tables, too many lights, too many monitors showing footage of me, sleeping, showering, eating, like someone had been watching me for months. And on one of the tables, Mark, alive, screaming. His skin was flayed open, ribcage spread like a book, wires threading in and out of his muscles, keeping him conscious, machines forcing his heart to beat. He saw me. His eyes pleaded, but he couldn't speak. His mouth was sewn shut with gas station receipts. One of the machines beeped. A figure stepped out from the shadows. It looked like me, but older, paler, hollow. It smiled. "This is what happens when you clock out early," it said. I don't know how I got out of that place. I remember running, bare feet slapping the floor, passing shelves that whispered my name, passing coolers that screamed. I burst through a set of double doors and woke up in my car, parked in front of my apartment. 3 days had passed. My phone had 47 missed calls, all from my own number. Each voicemail was just static and my own breathing. I tried to explain this to a therapist once. He smiled too much, asked too few questions. When I left his office, I saw him get into a car with the gas station's logo on the door. I don't know what's real anymore. Sometimes I dream I'm out, safe, far away. And then I wake up in the break room, staring at the old TV as it plays commercials for places that don't exist. Sometimes I see customers walk in, normal people. They grab chips, soda, beer. They smile. They don't see the blood. They don't hear the screams. They live their lives, and then they vanish, like they never existed. I found a Polaroid in my locker last night. It was a photo of me, standing behind the counter, smiling, only I don't remember it being taken. And in the background, through the glass door, was someone watching me. I looked closer. It was me again. But this version was crying, mouth sewn shut, holding a receipt in his hand. I flipped it over. It read, "Final shift." Then below that, a single phrase, Clock in forever. I haven't slept in what feels like weeks. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there, back in the aisles. The lights above flickering, the air thick with that mixture of gasoline, blood, and burning rubber. But the worst part isn't the nightmares. It's that the gas station has started following me. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. But after everything I've seen, I don't think the rules of reality apply anymore. Not to me. Not since I saw what was underneath that place. I tried quitting. I really tried. I handed in my resignation, walked out without looking back, drove 5 hours north to stay with an old friend in Milwaukee. I didn't tell him anything, just said I needed to crash for a while, clear my head. The first night was okay. I slept for 12 hours straight. No dreams. The second night, that's when it started. It was around 2:30 a.m. I went to the kitchen to grab a glass of water. My buddy was asleep. The place was quiet. As I filled my glass at the sink, I heard the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Too familiar. I turned. The hallway behind me wasn't my friend's apartment anymore. It was the stockroom of the gas station, fully intact, smelling of oil and ammonia and something metallic. I dropped the glass. It shattered, and suddenly, snap, the hallway returned to normal. Linoleum floors, beige wallpaper, a few framed pictures of my friends' kids, but the floor was still wet. Only now it wasn't water, it was red. I bolted back to the guest room and locked the door. That night, I dreamed of the walk-in freezer again. Only this time it wasn't empty. There were bodies, lined up neatly in rows. All of them. Me. Each one in a different state of decay. Some fresh, some rotting. One completely skeletal, holding a name tag that read, Assistant Manager. I screamed. The bodies turned their heads, in perfect unison, and whispered, Welcome back. When I woke up, I found a uniform folded neatly on the chair next to the bed. My name tag was pinned to the collar. Even though I never brought it with me, I burned it, took it out behind the apartment complex, poured lighter fluid all over it, and set it on fire. The flames burned blue. The fabric didn't melt. It screamed. I moved out that morning, didn't say goodbye, didn't explain. I just drove, as far west as I could. I made it to Montana before the car died. Middle of nowhere, no signal, empty roads. I found a cheap motel off Highway 2. Cash only, no ID required. Perfect. That night, I sat on the bed and stared at the blank TV screen. It turned on by itself. Snow. Static. Then, the security feed from inside the gas station. Camera 1, front counter, empty. Camera 2, aisle 4, movement, a figure walking slowly. Camera 3, stockroom, door, ajar, something crawling out of the dark. Then, camera 4, the break room. I was in it, sitting at the table, smiling, eating a microwaved burrito. I screamed, unplugged the TV, smashed it with the lamp. The screen shattered, but the image stayed, flickering in the glass shards. I left the motel that night. I started sleeping in my car, changing locations every night, rest stops, abandoned lots. Once in the parking lot of a church, until I saw a stained glass window glowing with gas station signage from inside. No matter where I go, it finds me. I went to a priest, tried to tell him. He listened, nodded, calm. Then without a word, he opened a drawer, pulled out a receipt, long, faded, from the gas station. He said nothing, just smiled, his mouth full of oil, black, dripping down his chin. I ran. I've tried everything. Therapists, hypnotherapy, exorcists. Nothing helps. One psychic told me the place wasn't a building. It was a being, a parasite, feeding on time, memory, identity, and it had chosen me. Why me? I asked. She looked up from her cards, her eyes white and milky. You clocked in, she whispered. You never clocked out. Then she started screaming. clawed at her own face until blood ran down her cheeks, like tears. I left before I could see what came next. I don't know how to end this. I don't know if this story has an ending. Everywhere I go, it's there. Sometimes just the smell. Sometimes a full aisle. Once I opened my glove box and found a hot dog roller spinning silently inside. I closed it, opened it again. Just maps. But the smell stayed. That burnt plastic and spoiled meat smell. Some nights, I sit in the dark and hear the sound of the freezer door creaking open, or the voice on the loudspeaker. Clean up in aisle U. I haven't told anyone else. Not really. Except you. If you're hearing this, don't stop at that station, even if you're low on gas, even if it looks normal, especially if it looks normal, because once you walk through those doors, it knows you, and it won't let go. There are days when I wonder if I'm still alive. I mean that literally. Not like one of those poetic metaphors where someone says they feel dead inside. No, I mean I honestly don't know if I ever left the gas station that night, or if everything since then has been some drawn-out hallucination inside that freezer, or worse, something else's dream. I started testing reality in small ways, writing messages to myself on my arm with a Sharpie, marking road signs, checking license plates for impossible combinations. At first, things seemed fine. A glitch here, a weird shadow there, but nothing concrete. But then I began to notice the repeaters, people, customers, pedestrians, always different outfits, sometimes different haircuts, but the same faces. The man with the mole under his left eye, who always wears those rounded glasses. The red-haired woman who chews her fingernails and hums, "Take me home, country roads," under her breath. The teenage boy in a Letterman jacket that reads, "Hastings High," even when I'm 3 states away. At first, I chalked it up to my mind playing tricks, but then I started recording them, taking photos discreetly on my phone. Different cities, different stores, same people, same expressions, same gas station smell, following close behind them. Last week, I was walking into a diner in Utah. Random stop, no GPS, no planning, when I heard the chime. Not the diner door chime, the gas station chime, that same artificial bing that plays whenever someone walks in. It echoed inside my skull like tinnitus. I looked up. The open sign on the diner flickered, red, blue, just like the emergency lights from that first night. Then, the smell hit me. Motor oil, burnt coffee, hot rubber, and blood. Not fresh blood either. Old, clotted, metallic. I turned and ran out before I could even get seated. I don't eat indoors anymore. Don't use public restrooms. Don't look at reflections for too long, because every now and then, just in the corner of my eye, I see that uniform, that smile, that black cracked name tag that just says, "You." And God help me. Sometimes it's smiling from my own face. I tried reaching out to other survivors. You'd be surprised how many forums there are for this kind of thing. Haunted workplaces, retail from hell, the third shift that never ends. Most of it's fake, clearly. Kids making up spooky stories for karma or attention. But once in a while, I find someone who says just enough to feel real. Like the woman who said she worked at a rest stop in Nevada and watched her manager walk into the vending machine and vanish. Or the guy who claimed his coworker spilled a cup of coffee, only for the liquid to soak into the floor and never stop spreading. That the stain kept growing until it outlined the shape of a man hanging from the ceiling. He said he got fired for trying to take a picture. The cameras caught him staring at nothing but white tile and fluorescent light. No spill, no shadow, no figure. But he swore it was there. And honestly, I believe him because I've seen worse. I've seen the clock on the register tick backwards for 10 minutes straight, only to snap forward with a bang and show my shift had ended. But I hadn't moved an inch. I've seen customers come in, purchase something, walk out, and come back 2 minutes later, wearing different clothes, asking the exact same question, their eyes a little too wide, like they're aware, like they know they aren't supposed to be there. And that's the part that haunts me most, that they know something I don't, that maybe, just maybe, I'm not the victim. Maybe I'm the bait. There was one guy, though, I'll never forget him. Mid-40s, thin, nervous energy. Came in around 3:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, asking if we sold maps. Maps? Who the hell still uses maps? I told him we had a rack near the slushy machine. He stared at it, like he couldn't read. Then he turned to me and asked, "Is this the real one?" That's what he said. The real one. I didn't know how to respond. He started pacing, muttering about exits and thresholds, about how the pumps were aligned wrong, how the neon signage was flickering in non-human patterns. He pulled out a compass and held it in the air. It spun like a fan. I laughed nervously. Then he stopped dead in front of me, leaned over the counter and whispered, "If you see the price board, blink twice. Get under the counter and don't speak. No matter what it says, don't speak." I started to ask what the hell he was talking about, but he was already gone. Didn't even open the door, just vanished. I checked the cameras. The footage showed him entering, but not leaving. The timestamp glitched for 3 frames, and then it was like he'd never existed. But his compass, it was still spinning on the floor, and the maps, they were all gone, every single one. That night, the price board blinked twice, and a voice came over the intercom that wasn't from anywhere. It wasn't a voice like you or me. It was like steel tearing apart underwater, like the sound of memory being peeled. It spoke my name, but not the one I go by. Not Caleb, not the name on my birth certificate. It said the name I used to say in my dreams, the one I don't even remember telling anyone. I dropped to the floor, clamped my hands over my mouth. The voice laughed, not like a joke, like it had won, like it knew I couldn't leave, like it knew I had already chosen, that I belonged to it now. I stayed under that counter for hours. When I finally peeked out, the lights were off, all of them. The gas station was dark, not nighttime dark, cave dark, soundless, still. I crawled out, step by step, terrified I'd bump into something that wasn't supposed to be there. But I made it to the door. It opened without a sound. And outside, the sun was up. Traffic passed like normal. Birds chirped, like nothing had happened. But the price board, it was blank, not off, blank, like someone had wiped it clean, like even the numbers were afraid. That was 3 nights ago. And every night since then, I've had the same dream. I'm pumping gas into a car I don't recognize. The nozzle leaks black liquid that hisses when it hits the pavement. I turn, and the station behind me has no windows, only eyes, thousands of them, watching, blinking in unison. And one of them, the biggest one, is mine. I stopped trying to contact my family. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It's that every time I did, something else answered. The first time was a week after that night with the price board. I tried calling my sister, just to hear her voice. She's one of those people who never sleeps, always picking up no matter the hour. But when she answered, the voice wasn't hers. It sounded like someone trying to mimic her, like when AI tries to replicate human inflection, but doesn't quite get the emotion right. It said the right words, even the pet name she used for me, Bug. But the tone was hollow, like her voice had been stripped of breath and warmth. And behind the voice, I could hear scraping, like metal dragging across concrete, like claws being sharpened, And worst of all, I heard myself, my own voice, laughing from inside the call. I hung up, threw the phone out, smashed the SIM, and I swear, even after it was gone, I still heard the laugh, in the pump speakers, in the buzz of the fluorescent lights, echoing when there shouldn't have been an echo. I knew then I couldn't go back. I couldn't involve anyone else, because whatever this was, it wasn't done with me yet. That same night, I got a delivery. I didn't order anything. The gas station doesn't do deliveries. It was a plain brown box. No address, no sender, no barcode. It just sat there on the counter, like it had always been there. I opened it with the box cutter we keep under the till. Inside, a VHS tape, just that, wrapped in brown paper, like someone had tried to preserve it. There was something handwritten on the label, just one word, in black marker. Rewind. We don't even have a VCR. But my curiosity overrode common sense. I found a pawn shop down Route 9 that still sold old electronics. Took the tape home, plugged everything in. When I hit play, the screen flickered, black and white static. Then, a single frame of the gas station from the outside, shot from across the road like some kind of security cam footage, time-stamped 3 weeks prior. At first it was just normal footage, empty pumps, flickering lights. Then, me. I walked into frame, only I was different. Gaunt, pale, hollow eyes. And the way I moved, it wasn't right. Like I was glitching between frames, jolting forward in skips and loops, my head snapping too fast in the wrong directions. I turned toward the camera, smiled, and then, in the footage, I raised my hand and pointed straight at the screen, at me, and in that instant, the power in my apartment cut out. Every light, every socket, even my backup battery, gone. Dead silence. I sat frozen for what felt like hours. When the power finally flickered back, the tape was gone, just vanished. I searched the whole place, gone. No box, no VCR, not even the cables. But the smell lingered. That same burning rubber, like the night in the freezer. That, and something new, something worse. It smelled like me. Burnt hair, old sweat, fear. I didn't sleep that night. I don't sleep much anymore. I stay at the gas station during the night, and I drive during the day. I can't stay in one place too long. When I do, the shadows catch up. I mean that literally. There are shadows that don't move right. I've seen them stretch when there's no light source, double themselves, split off and crawl in opposite directions. Once, I caught my own shadow blinking at me. Blinking. It lifted a hand when I didn't. Waved, like it was saying goodbye, or maybe hello. Now I avoid casting shadows when I can. I move quickly, stay in overcast places, but they still follow. Especially when I'm near any kind of fuel. Gasoline, kerosene, diesel. It doesn't matter. The smell triggers something, opens something, like a veil lifting. And then they get closer. Like that woman 2 nights ago. She pulled up in a silver Prius, looked completely normal. Blonde bob, Starbucks cup, Bluetooth headset. She asked for directions, but her eyes were wrong. Not the color. The depth, like someone had drawn them on with a pencil. Flat, artificial. She didn't blink once, just stared. I gave her fake directions just to get her to leave. She smiled, this wide, too perfect smile, and said, "You'll be empty soon." I laughed, confused. "Excuse me." Her smile didn't change. "You'll run out, and when you do, we'll pump you." She drove off before I could react. I ran after her, but the car turned the corner and was gone. No engine sound, no tail lights, just vanished. I stood at that curb for 15 minutes. When I turned back to the station, it had changed. The neon sign, it no longer said quick stop. It said empty. Just that. Empty. In bold red letters, flickering like a heartbeat. I went inside, heart racing. Everything looked the same, almost. But the security monitor was playing footage I'd never seen before, of a man behind the counter, someone who wasn't me. He looked tired, pale, shaking, and he kept staring at the door. In the footage he whispered something. I leaned in, no audio, but I could read his lips. "It doesn't let you leave." Suddenly the doorbell chimed. Not on the tape, in real life. I jumped, turned to the front, but there was no one there. The door was still locked, still dark outside, but on the glass, a handprint, smudged in black, like oil or ash. It was upside down, from the inside, but I hadn't touched the glass. No one had, and as I stared at it, it started to slide, down, slowly, like gravity had changed, like whatever made it was crawling, upward. I didn't clean the handprint. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Something about it felt sacred. No, not sacred, claimed. Like the station wasn't mine anymore. Like I wasn't mine anymore. I stared at that smudge until sunrise. It didn't fade. It didn't dry. It just stayed there, damp and black, like ink spilled in reverse gravity. I don't know how long I stood there. My legs went numb. My spine ached. But I didn't move, and I didn't blink, because I swear, if I blinked, I'd miss something. I think that's the rule now. It only moves when you blink. I don't know what it is. Not exactly, but it's watching, always watching, and it's getting closer. The next night, something new happened, around 2:03 a.m. I remember the time exactly because the clocks inside the station all froze, every single one, digital, analog, even my wristwatch. The second hand just stopped. The air changed too. It got thick, like breathing through wet wool. The sound in the room muted, muffled, like I was underwater. I couldn't hear the hum of the fridges or the buzz of the lights. Then the bell above the front door jingled, but the door didn't open. No one came in. It just jingled. Software lazy, like it was swinging on its own. Then the lights flickered and stayed off. Just like that, I was in total darkness. No backup lights, no emergency system, no battery flickers, nothing. I didn't even reach for a flashlight. I just stood there, frozen, because I knew whatever was about to happen was going to happen anyway. And I was right. From the darkness came a sound I still can't describe perfectly. The best I can say. It was like someone chewing raw meat inside my ear, wet, snapping, gristly, and then a whisper, low, guttural, almost amused. It said, "Don't turn around." I wasn't turning anyway, but hearing it say that, I wanted to scream, because it meant something was behind me, and it didn't want to be seen. I don't know how long I stood like that. 10 seconds, 10 minutes? Time didn't work in there anymore. Eventually the lights came back, but something was off. The station layout had changed. Shelves were shifted. Products weren't where they should be. The drink fridge had new flavors I'd never seen before. Ribcage punch, Marrowade, spine and lime. And on the counter was a receipt, dated for that very night, paid in cash, itemized, 1 soul, discounted, 2 screams, small, 1 exit, denied, and scribbled at the bottom in a handwriting that looked almost like mine. It said, "You're running on empty, buddy." There was a phone number, too, 10 digits. I didn't recognize it, but it burned into my head. Hours later, I couldn't help myself. I called it. There was no ring, no dial tone, just one word, whispered, "Soon." Then silence. When I tried calling back, the number was no longer in service. I'd like to tell you I slept that day. I didn't. Instead, I walked 11 miles in the opposite direction of the highway, left my car, didn't care, just walked and walked until my feet bled. I sat by a stream, drank warm Gatorade, stared at the sky. I almost believed I was free, until I looked at my shoes. They weren't mine. Not the ones I'd worn earlier. They were black leather boots, shiny, stiff, too clean. And there was a sticker on the sole, property of empty station number 031. My stomach dropped, because there's no such franchise. There never was. That night I returned to the gas station. I don't know why. I think I belong to it now, like it claimed me, stamped me with its presence, and I've started seeing the others, people like me, night workers, all-night cleaners, janitors, graveyard clerks. We see each other at 24-hour diners and rest stops, always the same look in our eyes, exhaustion mixed with fear, like we've all seen it. Whatever it is, we never talk about it. We just nod. We're the ones who understand the world doesn't sleep, and that the dark isn't empty. It's hungry, and it remembers. A few nights ago I met one of them, older man, balding, bad limp. He said he used to work security at a mine, until he started seeing the extra shift come up from shafts that were sealed years ago. He handed me a note, folded in greasy paper towel. It read, "If the floor moves like it's breathing, don't stand still." And then he walked out into the night, and I never saw him again. That was 3 days ago. And last night, the floor did start moving, like a pulse, a heartbeat. I ran, didn't matter where, just away from the center. And as I ran, I swear I saw something crawl out from under the tiles. It didn't make a sound, just watched me with that look, that same flat expression the woman in the Prius had. Not malice, not curiosity, just expectation, like it was waiting for me, like it knew I'd come back. I sleep behind the counter now, sometimes in the back room, sometimes not at all. And when I dream, it's always the same. I'm on the other side of the glass, looking in, and me is behind the register, smiling, mouthing something I can't hear. But I know what he's saying. I know, because I've started saying it too, out loud, without realizing, over and over. 3 words. Keep it full. The phrase, keep it full, kept echoing in my head like a broken record that didn't belong to me. It slipped out of my mouth at odd times. Brushing my teeth, pouring coffee, flipping through shift reports. I'd mutter it under my breath, and sometimes louder, and each time I said it, I felt a strange calm settle in. Not relief, not comfort, just obedience, like I was doing what I was supposed to, even when I didn't understand what the hell it meant. I tried quitting. I did. I called my boss. The number went straight to a monotone voicemail. "This line has been disconnected." I searched for the job listing online, tried to find the hiring agency that placed me there. Nothing. No record. It was as if my employment, my existence there, had been erased from the system. That night, the sign outside the station changed. It didn't flicker. It didn't glitch. It just changed, like it had always been that way. Instead of fuel and go, it now read, feed and go. That wasn't the name of this place, at least it wasn't before. But now, somehow I wasn't so sure. I checked my old pay stubs. They'd updated too. The company name was now Feed and Go Inc. Even the uniform I wore now had a stitched patch with the new name, like someone had swapped out the branding overnight. No evidence, no explanation. It was like reality was slowly shifting around me, 1 grain at a time. That same night, at 3:15 a.m., a customer came in. Tall guy, thin, pale skin like paper left in the sun. No hair, eyes that looked wrong, no whites, just solid brown irises that followed me even when he wasn't looking directly. He didn't say a word, just placed a black duffel bag on the counter. The sound it made when it landed, wet. He unzipped it. Inside were bones, not cleaned, not fossilized, fresh. Some still had strands of skin and what looked like nerve tissue hanging from them. I stepped back, hand hovering over the silent alarm, which I already knew wouldn't work. He looked at me and finally spoke, voice like broken gravel. "Keep it full." I didn't move. He pushed the bag toward me and added, "You're overdue." And then he left. No car, no headlights, just walked into the night. I wanted to throw the bag away, burn it, call the cops, but instead, I stored it. I don't know why. I brought it into the cooler in the back, where we keep expired sandwiches and old hot dog packs, and placed it on the bottom shelf. And when I closed the door, I saw my reflection in the glass. Only, it wasn't quite me. It looked like me, but the expression was off, like I was faking myself. The next shift, I started seeing the tanks at pump number 4 fill up without a car there. Meter spinning, fuel draining, no one around. I even checked the camera footage, and this part still messes with me. In the video, I saw myself standing outside, but I wasn't outside. I was inside the whole time, yet the footage showed me same clothes, same walk, going to pump number 4, crouching beside it, and opening a hatch I didn't know existed. And from the hatch, a long black cable slithered out, like a thick oily vine, and burrowed into the concrete. No one drove up that night, but 57 gallons were missing from the tank. I checked the underground tank readings. They didn't make sense. The gauge said we had over 12,000 gallons more than capacity, more than should be possible. It was growing. Fuel that wasn't being delivered, fuel that appeared. And that's when I started wondering, what are we really filling up? It's not cars, not anymore. I started hearing it at night, under the floorboards, breathing. The walls would swell and relax like lungs. The ice freezer outside began to vibrate on its own. I found claw marks on the inside of it one morning. 5 deep grooves, stained reddish-brown. There's no way something had been inside it, right? I was losing it. So I tried bringing someone with me. My cousin Drew was visiting from Chicago. I didn't tell him everything, just said I didn't want to be alone. He agreed. That night was quiet. No ghost pumps, no strange customers, no duffel bags. Around 2:40 a.m., Drew said he was going to use the bathroom. I nodded. A minute passed, then 2, then 10. I knocked on the door. No answer. I unlocked it. Empty. I checked the whole station. Nothing. I went outside, called his name, used the flashlight to sweep the surrounding lot. No signs, no footsteps, no tire tracks. Just a smell. Metallic, burned rubber and rot. And then, his watch. Hanging from pump number 4's nozzle. Still ticking. Still warm. When I picked it up, I felt something inside the pump shift. Something massive, like it was turning over in sleep. The whole nozzle was wet, but not with fuel. It smelled wrong, like blood, old blood. I locked the doors, shut off all the lights, and curled up behind the counter. I didn't sleep. I don't sleep anymore. I just wait for the next shift, for the next whisper, for the next sign that it is still watching, still feeding, and still keeping score. After Drew disappeared, something shifted in the air around the station, like the rules had changed. Before that night, whatever was happening here operated under shadows, glitching reality quietly, making me question myself. But now, it was done hiding. The following evening, the windows were blacked out, not boarded, not broken, just impossibly dark. From the inside, I could see nothing out the front or side glass panels. It was like looking into a void. I opened the door and reached my arm out. I could feel the cool night air, even hear crickets in the distance. But my vision wouldn't adjust. Even the security cameras showed nothing outside anymore. Just black static. And still, customers came in. I don't know how. or from where. But they'd walk out of that darkness and step through the door like they were walking into a corner store on any normal street. Except none of them looked right. One man had no mouth. Another had too many. A woman came in dragging something behind her. A long, thin bag that scraped the floor and moaned softly. When she left, the bag wasn't moaning anymore. None of them paid in cash, or card, or said thank you. They just nodded to me, sometimes whispered, "Good work," and left. I stopped checking the register. Money wasn't part of this anymore. This wasn't a business. It was a ritual, and I was part of it. Pump number 4 began changing. The hose would writhe slightly, like something alive inside it was stretching. The display would glitch, then display words instead of numbers. Accepted. Hunger deferred. More required. I avoided it. Didn't refill it. Didn't touch it. But it didn't matter. One morning I came in and found all the other pumps dry. Every last one read, out of order. Except number 4. That one was glowing, pulsing a faint reddish light like a warning, like a heartbeat or a countdown. I began having dreams, terrible ones, of an endless highway under a starless sky, stretching into nothing, of a creature, no, a thing, crawling across asphalt, dragging bodies in its wake. It had hundreds of limbs, all human, but none were alive. And its face was my face. It smiled at me, crawled toward me, and whispered, "You belong here. You are always part of it." I'd wake up soaked in sweat, my mouth full of a taste like iron and ash. Then came the inspectors. At least I thought that's what they were. 2 men, black suits, identical. No logos, no badges. One was tall, one was slightly taller. They didn't blink. They walked in, looked around, didn't touch a thing. Then they turned to me and said, perfectly in sync, "You've been doing well." I asked who they were. They smiled at the same time and responded, "We're just tank checkers." They asked me one question. "Has Pump 4 spoken to you yet?" I stared at them. "No," I said. One of them nodded. The other tilted his head like a bird and replied, "Then you're still safe." They left without another word. But something about that stuck with me. Still safe? Meaning one day I won't be? And then, about 3 nights ago, the station tried to eat me. I know how that sounds, but I don't care anymore. It started with a deep groaning in the floor. The tiles buckled slightly. I thought it was a gas leak or structural collapse. But then, something pushed upward from below. The floor lifted, and something black, tarry, almost organic, started bleeding through the cracks. It wasn't a burst pipe. It was alive. I heard whispering from the walls, my name, repeated over and over. "Ethan, Ethan, Ethan." That's when I realized I'd never told anyone my name since I started working here, not even Drew. The whispers came from the vents, the cooler, even the drain in the bathroom. They got louder, angrier. "Feed us. Keep it full. Stop hiding." The lights went out. I grabbed the flashlight from under the counter, but it didn't work. Neither did my phone. Total blackout. Then the shelves started to collapse. Not fall over, but sink. Like the building was melting inward. I ran to the door. Locked. I turned around and saw the cooler door swing open. The duffel bag was gone. In its place, a hole. A deep, vertical tunnel dug into the earth. And something was climbing out. Not fast, not aggressive, just inevitable. Limbs made of rebar and tubing. A face that flickered like old CRT static. And eyes, hollow glowing orange. It didn't speak. It just stared at me. Then it pointed to Pump number 4. And behind me, I heard it sputter to life. Ch-ch-ch. The nozzle clanked out of its cradle and fell to the ground, twitching like a severed vein. I screamed and ran to the back exit. It was open. I never leave it open. I burst out into the night, or what should have been night. But outside was not the world. It was just the station. On every side, hundreds of them, identical gas stations stretching infinitely in all directions. Some were on fire, some were broken and covered in claw marks. Some had no roof, and things flew in circles above them. But every single one had pump number 4 glowing red. Everyone. And I could hear them, all whispering across the multitudes. Keep it full. I dropped to my knees and screamed until my throat tore. Then I blacked out. When I woke up, I was back behind the counter, like nothing had happened. Only, there was a note on the register, handwritten, in my handwriting. It said, "You accepted the shift. Don't try to quit again." I burned it. Didn't matter. The next day, there was another, and another, until I stopped throwing them out. They're still there, taped to the wall behind me. All of them written by my hand. All of them threatening in the nicest possible way. And now, the tank in the back is growing again. The readings show 19,042 gallons. The maximum capacity is 12,000. What am I feeding? I don't know. But it's still hungry, and I'm still here. Because I think if I ever leave, it will follow me home. The dreams have changed now. They're not the same hollow, empty roads that stretch into nothing anymore. Now it's a labyrinth, a maze of gas stations, each darker than the last. The walls flicker like the light's about to die, but it never does. It just stays. In the dream, I'm running through it, trying to escape, but I can never find an exit. I always end up back at pump number 4, and that's when it happens. I hear it whisper. Every time it's the same. You didn't stop. You never stopped. Sometimes I hear Drew. He's screaming for help, but when I look, he's gone. Just an echo. Sometimes I hear it. That thing that watches. Its breath so close I can feel it, but it's never near me. It's always just behind me. I never see it, but I know it's there. The other night, something happened that I can't explain. I thought I saw a man standing near pump number 4. It was around 3 a.m. Dead quiet. The kind of silence you only get when the world forgets you exist. This man, tall, thin, wearing a tattered coat, just stood there. He didn't move, didn't even look in my direction. His face was hidden in shadow, but the air around him felt wrong. It was thick, oppressive, like the weight of 100 bodies hanging in the space between us. I called out to him. I asked if he needed gas. No response. I tried again. Nothing. At this point, I was starting to get a little unnerved, but I didn't want to appear scared. So I grabbed the flashlight and walked outside. When I got closer, I saw his face. I couldn't breathe. His eyes weren't right. They were black. No whites, no pupils, just an endless void where his eyes should have been. And his skin, it was pale, unnaturally pale, like it had been drained of color, like a corpse that had been left out in the sun too long, then put back in a coffin. I took a step back, and that's when he spoke. His voice was wrong. It didn't come from his mouth. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. It's time. I didn't ask what he meant. I couldn't. My throat was tight, like something was choking me from the inside out. He started walking toward me, and that's when I saw it. The strange red glow coming from the ground beneath his feet. Not just the usual glow from pump number 4. This was something else, something new, something alive. I turned and ran, but when I looked back, the man was gone, just gone, like he was never there in the first place. But the air still felt thick, like it was pressing against me. When I got back inside, I found the station had changed. The layout was slightly different. The shelves were in a new configuration, and the air felt stale, almost tainted. The worst part? The cash register had a new set of receipts. Each one was filled with a name, my name, but written in a way that made it look like someone had scratched it into the paper with their nails. The letters were jagged, uneven, like they were bleeding through the paper. The last one had my name, but with a date that wasn't today. It was a year from now. The worst part, it was today's date. The name didn't stop there. It started to fade. The ink wasn't just disappearing. It was pulling away, as though it had never been written there in the first place. I felt myself drawn to pump number 4. I don't know why, but my feet moved on their own. I couldn't stop them. When I reached the pump, I saw something that made my heart stop. The nozzle wasn't where it was supposed to be. It had fallen on the ground. But it wasn't lying there like it normally would. It was curled around the edge of the concrete, like a snake coiling around its prey. And then it moved. I jumped back, my heart racing, and in that instant, the pump's light flickered, and the words that I've been hearing for the past few weeks flashed across the screen. Feed it full. Suddenly, the lights went out again. The door to the station slammed shut. I was trapped. I tried to scream, but my voice wouldn't come out. I looked at the security monitors. Everything was wrong. The screen glitched, and I saw figures, hundreds of them, crawling across the parking lot. Some were dragging themselves, others were floating. All of them were heading straight toward the station. I tried the back exit, but it was locked. I tried the front door, but it wouldn't budge. And the figures, they were getting closer, their faces flickering in and out like they were trapped between this world and something else. One of them reached the door, and it smiled, a smile that didn't belong on a human face. I looked at the register again. More receipts, more names, more dates, and my name, once again, written over them all. This time, the last receipt had something different. It was a question. Are you ready to join us? I couldn't breathe. Then I heard it again. The whisper. It's time. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything was spinning. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. They seemed to be coming from all directions, from inside my head, from the walls, from the ground beneath me. The lights flickered again, and I felt a cold breeze rush past me, even though the doors were shut. And then, something shifted. The air thickened, like it was alive, pressing against me, suffocating me. The figures outside began to move faster, slithering like shadows. Their eyes, those empty, dark voids, were locked on me. It felt like they were waiting for me, waiting for something. I looked down at the receipts again. Each one had my name written on it, but the ink was starting to fade. But it wasn't just the ink. It was the names. The names were starting to disappear. It wasn't just me anymore. Others had been here before, many others. And the thing, whatever it was, wanted me to join them. I could feel it now, the pull. It was like a magnetic force drawing me closer to the door. The more I resisted, the harder it became to breathe, to think. And then I heard it, a low, rumbling growl. But it wasn't from outside. It came from below the floor. The concrete beneath me began to crack, deep fissures opening up, revealing a blackness so deep it made the night outside seem like daylight. And then, from the cracks, I saw them, things slithering out. Their eyes glowed red. Their limbs were twisted, contorted in ways no human body should ever be. I backed away slowly, my heart racing. I knew I had to get out. But every step I took toward the door, the figures outside seemed to draw closer, getting larger. And then a voice that was soft at first, then growing louder until it was deafening. It was like the voice was coming from inside my mind, scratching at the edges of my sanity. You can't run. You can't hide. You are already one of us. I turned toward the voice, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't a man. It wasn't even human. It was tall, far too tall for any man to be. Its limbs were long and bony, the skin stretched tight over its bones, a sickly gray color. Its face was a blur, a jumble of features that didn't make sense, like a mask that had been smashed and reformed. But its eyes, those eyes, they were dark, endless pits that seemed to stare right through me. I felt them digging into me, into my soul, and I knew without a doubt that this thing wasn't alive. It was something worse. It was death, and it was here for me. The moment our eyes met, everything around me seemed to freeze. The air went still. The whispers stopped. The world outside the station faded into nothing. It was just me and this thing. Its mouth opened, stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth, sharp enough to tear through flesh and bone with ease. And then it spoke. You've made it this far. Now you belong to us. I ran. I don't know how I found the strength to move, but I did. My legs moved faster than I ever thought possible, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to escape. I just needed to survive. I reached the back exit, but it wouldn't open. The door was locked from the outside. There was no way out. And then I heard it again. The whisper. It was different this time. It was louder, more insistent. Join us. The ground beneath my feet began to shake, the lights flickering wildly. I felt something grabbing at my ankles, pulling me down. I looked down, and it was like the floor itself was trying to swallow me whole. That's when I saw it. A hand. A cold, clammy hand, reaching out from beneath the cracks in the floor, its fingers long and thin, with nails like claws. It grabbed my leg, and in that instant, I knew I was going to be dragged under. There was no escaping it. The thing in the shadows, the whispers, the others, they were all around me, waiting for me to give in. But I didn't. I fought. I kicked. I screamed. I reached for the door, for anything that could get me out. And that's when the lights went out. It was complete darkness, absolute silence, the kind of silence you only get when the world ends. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear anything. All I could feel was the cold, the emptiness, and then, just as suddenly as it had all started, I felt the pressure release. The hand let go. The floor stopped shaking. I was back in the station, but nothing was the same. The air was thick, suffocating. The walls closed in on me, and I could feel the presence of something watching me. I wasn't alone. I never was. The door opened on its own. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stood there, waiting for whatever was next. And that's when I saw them again. The figures, hundreds of them, crawling out of the darkness, their eyes empty and hungry. And I knew it was too late. The figures kept crawling toward me, slowly but with purpose. They were closer now, their movements unnervingly silent. No footsteps, no breathing, just a slow, steady drag of their bodies, a sickening slither of skin against concrete. Each one seemed to have a distorted face, their eyes empty but glowing with an unsettling, faint blue light. Some had mouths, others didn't, but every one of them radiated an unmistakable sense of hunger. I took a step back, my mind racing, searching for a way out. But there was no escape. The door behind me had shut, locking me in with them. The only way out was forward, and that meant facing these things. I felt my heart beat in my throat, every pulse growing louder as the figures approached, their hands reaching out, their fingers twitching like they were eager to touch me. I could hear faint murmurs now, whispers from the creatures. They weren't speaking. Not in the conventional sense, but the words formed in my mind, like an echo. You're one of us now. It was the same voice, that haunting, unearthly voice I had heard before. The voice that spoke in my head, that seemed to crawl under my skin and leave an icy chill in its wake. I tried to shut it out, to force my mind to block it. But it was impossible. It was everywhere. It was in the very air I breathed. My legs were frozen. My body wouldn't move. Fear gripped me, and I stood there, paralyzed, as the first figure reached me. It was tall, its body twisted and unnatural. It had no skin, just raw, exposed muscle and sinew. Its face, if you could even call it that, was nothing but a gaping hole, a mass of jagged teeth and dark, empty sockets where eyes should be. The thing reached out, its fingers brushing against my arm. A shock ran through me, like ice-cold electricity, and I gasped, a strangled sound escaping my throat. It felt as though it was pulling something from me, draining me. My skin felt tight, as if it was being sucked into my bones, leaving me weaker with each passing second. You belong to us now, the voice whispered again, but it was louder this time, as if it was directly inside my mind. I could feel it inside, pulling at my consciousness. I screamed. I didn't care anymore. I just screamed, a guttural sound that ripped through my throat. I tried to pull away, but my legs wouldn't move. The figures closed in around me, their eyes fixed on me, their hands reaching, their faces a grotesque blend of human and something other. In a blind panic, I yanked my arm free from the creature's grasp, stumbling back. My eyes darted to the walls, looking for something, anything that could help me. And that's when I saw it. The door I had thought was locked. I didn't waste a second. I lunged for it, my fingers gripping the cold metal, and with one violent yank, I pulled the door open. A flood of air hit me, and I rushed into the narrow alleyway behind the station, gasping for breath. I had made it out, but I wasn't free. I could feel them behind me. The creatures, they were still there, still following. I could hear their scraping, their breathing, their twisted forms dragging across the concrete. I glanced back once, and in that brief moment, I saw the shadows closing in, faster now, more persistent. The alley was a dead end. I was trapped again. The walls were too high. The only escape was the door I had just left. But I knew it was no use. If I went back, they would have me. There was no escape. Not from them. Not from this place. Suddenly there was a sharp, painful pressure on my chest. I gasped, my body seizing, my hands reaching for my throat. My heart pounded in my ears as I stumbled back against the wall. The whispers were louder now, too loud to ignore. You can't escape. And then I felt it. A hand. A cold, clammy hand on my shoulder, spinning me around with brutal force. I was face to face with the figure, the one that had spoken to me before. Its face was twisted, its features distorted, but those eyes, those empty eyes, locked onto mine, and I felt my soul tremble. You're one of us now, it said, its voice echoing in my skull. I tried to scream, but no sound came. My chest constricted, my throat tightening as though something were lodged there, choking the life out of me. My pulse hammered in my ears, louder now, louder than ever before. They were coming for me. The pain in my chest intensified, spreading like wildfire, engulfing every fiber of my being. It was worse than anything I had ever felt. It wasn't just pain. It was the sensation of something ripping, no, tearing me apart from the inside. My skin felt like it was burning. My insides felt wrong, as if they were being twisted, rearranged into something unrecognizable. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even see. Then there was a sound, A whisper, so faint at first that I thought I had imagined it. "It's time." The words echoed in my mind, but they weren't just words. They were commands, a command to act, to join. And I knew deep down that whatever had been speaking to me all this time, whatever I had been running from, it was no longer content with waiting. It was taking me now. I felt it. The pull. It was insidious, like a thread being yanked from the very core of my existence. I couldn't fight it. It wasn't a choice. Whatever this thing was, it had already claimed me. I could feel myself slipping away, becoming something else, something unnatural. I wanted to scream, to fight back, but it was like I had no control over my own body. My limbs felt heavy, my thoughts clouded. I could only sense the pull, growing stronger with every passing moment, a cold, hungry force that dragged me closer, closer to them. I wanted to remember the world I had known, the job, the friends, the life I had. But the memories were slipping away, dissolving like smoke, fading into the abyss where they couldn't be retrieved. I had become a part of it now. Then, as quickly as it had started, it stopped. The pressure on my chest eased, and the suffocating darkness faded. My vision cleared, and I was standing in the alleyway once more. The door that had led me to the gas station was gone. In its place, there was only a wall, blank, sterile, and impenetrable. I turned around, still dazed, but my body felt wrong. There was no pain anymore, but something had shifted. The air around me was thick, oppressive, and the shadows seemed to crawl on their own, moving as if they had a life of their own. And then I saw them again. The figures, the creatures. They were standing in the distance, unmoving, staring at me with their hollow eyes. But now, they weren't crawling. They weren't dragging their bodies across the ground. They were standing tall, their posture upright. They were watching me, waiting for me to make the next move. The space between us felt different. It was as if the world had changed in an instant, and I was now part of something much larger than myself. The fear that had once gripped me wasn't there anymore, though. Instead, there was a strange sense of understanding, a connection. I didn't have to ask who they were anymore. I knew. They were the others, the ones who had been taken, the ones who had joined. I could feel it now. I was no longer separate from them. I was one of them. I was part of their group, and they were waiting for me to embrace it, to become what they had become. The whispers in my mind were louder now, clearer. Welcome. The words were not cold, not cruel. They were welcoming, almost tender. It was as though I had been accepted into something greater, something ancient, and I didn't fight it. I couldn't. One of the figures stepped forward, its hollow eyes locked onto mine. This time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't scared. I knew what I had to do. I reached out, and as soon as my hand made contact with its cold, smooth skin, a flood of memories rushed through me. Not my own memories, but its memories. The memories of those who had come before me. It was a horrifying realization. This thing, this creature, wasn't just an entity. It was an ancient presence, a being that had existed for centuries, consuming, growing, spreading. And now it had found me, and I had joined it. My vision blurred again, but this time there was no pain, no fear, only the deep enveloping darkness that consumed everything around me. And just as quickly, I was gone. I was no longer human. I was something else. As I was pulled deeper into the presence, the very fabric of reality seemed to unravel. My senses were heightened, but in ways that I couldn't comprehend. It was as if my mind had opened up to a realm beyond understanding, beyond human experience. The world I once knew, the people I had interacted with, the emotions I had felt, They were all fading into the abyss, becoming distant echoes. I wasn't alone anymore. The creatures, no longer just shadows, no longer just things lurking in the dark corners of my world. They were with me, and more of them began to emerge from the darkness. Each one had a presence about them, an aura that was both unnerving and strangely comforting. They surrounded me, but they didn't move toward me with malice. They moved as if to guide me, to show me the way. There was no voice, no sound of footsteps, just the gentle whispering in my mind. Those strange, familiar whispers that had been haunting me all this time. You belong here now. It wasn't a statement. It was a truth that had settled into my bones. As terrifying as it all was, as horrific as the events leading up to this moment had been, I understood it now. This wasn't some twisted nightmare I had stumbled into by accident. No, I had been chosen. I was meant to be here. I looked around at the others. They were not as I had first seen them. Twisted, broken, crawling things. Now they stood tall, their eyes no longer hollow, but filled with something ancient, knowledge, power. They had been transformed, just like me. And that's when I realized the ones who had come before me, those who had embraced this existence, were no longer human. They were something much more, something beyond human comprehension, something other. And now, I was one of them. I felt the pull again, stronger this time. It was as if a thread was connecting me to the heart of this place, the very core of whatever dark force had taken hold of me. My chest tightened as the realization sank in. I was no longer myself. I had become a part of this, a part of them. The darkness was no longer suffocating. It was liberating. There were no boundaries, no limits, only endless potential. I could feel myself changing, my body shifting in ways that defied logic. My senses, once confined to the mortal world, were now attuned to something far beyond human perception. I could feel the vibrations of the universe, the pulse of life that flowed through everything and everyone. It was intoxicating, empowering. But even in this moment, even as I stood there, finally understanding my purpose, there was still a part of me that couldn't fully accept it. The human part of me, the part that had once known fear, once known pain, was still struggling to let go. It clung to the memories, to the person I had been. But that person was no longer here. That person was gone. The flesh, the mind, the identity, everything that made me me had been stripped away. What remained was something else, something new, something much darker. The whispers grew louder, their words more insistent. It's time to embrace your destiny. I didn't fight it. I couldn't. And in that moment I knew I wasn't the same, and I would never be the same again. My body moved on its own, following the creatures, following the pull that had brought me here. They led me to a place that defied all logic, a place of twisted geometry, a place where the laws of nature seemed to bend and break. It was a temple of sorts, though not in any way I could recognize. The air was thick with an ancient power, a power that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the very universe itself. The walls were adorned with symbols, symbols that seemed to shift when I looked away, symbols that danced and writhed as if alive. And at the center of it all was a figure, a being so ancient that its presence made the entire world feel insignificant. It was otherworldly. Its form was impossible to describe, shifting constantly in ways that made my mind ache to comprehend it. But there was no mistaking what it was. It was the source, the origin of everything that had happened. The whispers grew to a crescendo as I approached it. My body trembled, my mind reeling with the weight of the moment. I was standing at the threshold of something that had existed long before me, long before humanity itself, and now I was a part of it, a part of something that had been waiting for eons. The being reached out, its presence enveloping me, and I felt the last remnants of my humanity fade away. The final whispers filled my mind, and I understood. I was no longer an individual. I had become a vessel, a part of the darkness, a part of the void that had been consuming everything, and I was not alone. The others were with me. We were one. We were the end, and it was only just beginning.